and talk to you about something I mentioned in my post yesterday about a tool, one of my favorite tools that I like to use in almost all of my therapy sessions with children with autism. And that was the term co-regulation. And I'm sure that's a term that many of you haven't heard before because I know before I learned about it, I had never heard that term. And actually, it's interesting. So, let me just back up for a minute. So, the term co regulation comes from an approach called RDI, or relationship development intervention. And if you haven't heard about relationship development intervention, definitely if you have a child on the spectrum, look this up because I feel like learning about RDI has made me so much better of a therapist for children with autism. And I have really been able to connect and engage and build relationships and rapport with my students at a much deeper level than I would have been able to if I did not learn about about RDI and how to implement the relationship development techniques. Now, just as like a disclaimer, technically, in order to do RDI, you have to be a certified RDI trained consultant, which I am not. I might be one day. It's always been kind of in the back of my mind. But you can do relationship development intervention techniques. But if you are interested in pursuing RDI for your child, you really need to look for a certified RDI consultant. So, co regulation comes from relationship development intervention. And that was the first time and only time I had ever heard of that term was in relation to this methodology of working with children with autism, or working with the autism population. And then until I was doing my own personal work on relationships and like romantic relationships and learning how to improve my ability to be in relationship with other people. And I heard the term co regulation again in that context. And it really was interesting to me that the two times in my life that I hear this term both have to do with building relationships. So, co regulation is a really important tool to build relationships and connection with another person. When you are co regulated with a person, it means that your nervous systems are. Are synchronized and they are responding well to each other. And when you are in regulation with another person's nervous system, then you're able to feel safe and engage with them. So, um, but with co regulation, as I use it as a tool in working with my students with autism, at its most basic level, it is I am slowly teaching my students to match their actions to my actions. But there's a very particular way that I do it in which I use very, very little verbal communication. So it's not like a following directions activity, and it's not like an ABA or VB activity where where you're working on motor imitation, saying do this, do this. It really is a genuine invitation for the child to do what you're doing. And I have found that this works wonders for my students that have a lot of mental distraction and a lot of mental chatter going on in their head. So if you're an SLP or a teacher that works with this population, I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. You can picture some kids like that in your mind. Or if you have a child that has a lot of, like, if they're doing a lot of video talk to themselves or they're kind of chattering to themselves a lot, using this strategy has been a game changer for me in getting these students to connect with and engage with me and want to utilize their language to talk to me in sessions. So, I'm going to just kind of go over and explain a couple of my favorite activities that I like to use co regulation for. So, starting out, It's like a basic RDI 101 activity. I always start with what's called like a co-regulation walk, right? So when I was working in a school system, I had a great opportunity every time I would pick a student up for speech that I would have this walk from the classroom to my therapy room. And so I would always try to utilize that walk as part, like our session starts the second that child's hand reaches mine, right? So I would turn that walk into part of our therapy time, and we would work on these co-regulation skills. So an RDI walk looks something like this, and there are some great videos on YouTube. If you were to go into YouTube and just search RDI co-regulation walk, you could probably find some videos of parents doing this with their child, because that's another form of RDI that I actually love. It's consultants teaching parents the system and the tools of how to interact with their child. So on this walk, you walk with your child, and then periodically you stop and you don't say anything, you just stop. And I like to get down to the child's level when we stop and just kind of look and wait expectantly, right? And all you're waiting for is for the child to turn and look at you and to check in. So that's called facial referencing. It's a little bit different than making eye contact, but it's the point of, we want the child to realize we're stopped. Why are we stopped? I want to go. And so they turn and check in with the adult to see what's happening. And the second that they make that eye contact, and it might take a long time at first. So don't feel frustrated if you try this with your child and it does seem to take a while for them to turn and reference you at first, because that's common. Excuse me, it happens a lot. I decided to go live with no water near my computer. That was smart. So bear with me. So you get down to the child's level and just wait and look at them expectantly. The second that the child looks at you, you're gonna make your face just light up like a Christmas tree, and you smile and nod and you keep walking. And then you stop again and you wait, look down at the child, wait for them to look at you. When they look at you, and then you walk, and all it is a smile and a head nod, and you walk. So now you're working on your child problem solving to figure out why you're stopped and initiating some sort of communication. So looking at the adult is initiating nonverbal communication, and it's kind of the same as your child saying like, what the H is going on, mom? And then nonverbally communicating to them it's time to go by the smile and the nod, and you keep walking and you keep doing this. This is also a great activity for kids that like to bolt away from you and don't, and as like if you're working on it for safety issues and they have a hard time staying with an adult when they're walking with you, this is a great activity to work on, because the ultimate goal of that activity is that you can walk side by side with the child and not hold their hands, and they'll be so in tune to when you stop that they stop, because you've kind of practiced this walk, and they know that when they stop and look at you, you're going to be really happy and you smile and you're going to keep going. And it also helps if sometimes you mix it up, and when they look at you, you say something like, run, and then you run really, really fast. And that makes it really fun and exciting for the child. Um, because what kid doesn't like to run, especially, right? Or you could say, jump, and then you start jumping with the child. But you're keeping your verbal output very, very small during this, because you're really focusing on the child tuning in to your presence as a person and your nonverbal communication, which is really, really important when you're working with kids on the spectrum. So, and then eventually they realize that this is a fun activity. When you stop, sometimes fun things happen, so you can let go of the hand, and the child will walk side by side with you, and when you stop, they stop and look at you to find out like, what's happening, why did we stop, mom? Because they're used to doing that activity with you. So that's really important for safety concerns as well. And so then once your child is able to do this basic level of a walk and they tune into you pretty quickly when you stop and look at them, and let me tell you, sometimes this takes a long time and you have to just be consistent with it. I would do this with my students every single time. I'd pick them up for speech, and some of them had speech 5 times a week, 3 times a week, 4 times a week. So that was really helpful in us building that rapport and getting through the activity. So then you can then change up the activity. So I would do things like hold both their hands so that we're face to face, and we would take I would take a big giant step to the side, and then I would just keep doing that. And eventually the child kind of catches on that they start imitating what you're doing. And then you stop and you change it up. Maybe next time you're going to jump. And the idea is to jump together so that you're going down at the same time and jumping at the same time. Because if the child can do that with you, then they are very regulated with your actions. And when they are regulated with you on that kind of a motor level and nonverbal level, let me tell you, they are not in their heads with their mental chatter. They are present. They are connected. They are engaged in what is happening with you in that moment. And it might, maybe you just do this for like a 5 minute walk. It doesn't have to be a very long time. I would do this. I wouldn't spend an entire session doing it. I would do it if we walked from the classroom to the speech room. I would do it if we walked from my speech room to the OTPT room, because I love to do sessions in the OTPT room so I can really engage the students' sensory systems. Um, and I would just utilize that walk as time to get that child to be co regulated with me and connected with me. And because it's a physical activity, a lot of children on the spectrum will much more easily engage when they are moving their body and more physical. And I have seen with these kids that have a lot of mental chatter or a lot of the video talk, that when I am consistent in doing these types of co-regulation activities with them, where I'm having them match their movements to my movements, I will even do things like get down on the floor and we're going to crab walk, and they copy that. um, and the more you can change it up and the sillier you can be and the more fun you can be, is the more fun and engaged the child will be. And what happens is, over time, that child is more connected and engaged with me during my therapy sessions more of the time. And I have to, I'm up against having to break through that mental chatter less and less, because now I've built this rapport with the child, and we're more bonded and connected. And that's why RDI is called relationship development intervention. It's because these types of activities, they really connect neurologically for the child, and then where it really does help the child and the adult. It's a master apprentice relationship they talk about. It really does help that relationship and that bond form, and it's so impactful and so effective. Another type of activity that I do that doesn't involve like going for a walk in a hallway is I do this little banging game. So I always like to sit across from my students so that we're face to face, and I always have some sort of a lap board or whatever. But you could do it on a table, you could do it side by side, and there's this little game that I play. And it goes like this, where I'm gonna tap up here so you can see my hand, so I have nothing to tap on. So just imagine that it's making a banging sound, okay? So it's I've been, I've been, I've been, and then I hold, told, I stop, and I'm encouraging the child to do it with me. The drum cut cold, the drum cut cold, look out, look out, look out. Please, we're all gonna sneeze. Achoo! And they think that that little game is funny, And when you can increase the pausing, so you want the child to regulate the tapping with you, and then they stop when you stop, and then they go when you go. And the more you can increase the pausing and the anticipation, that's helping to improve the child's flexibility to respond to unpredictable situations. So these are all things that we want to improve with our kiddos that are on the spectrum. And that's what these co-regulation activities all just have built into them all in one. So that's another fun little game that you can do. There's tons of different co-regulation activities you can do with your child. I encourage you to check it out. Those are just a few of my favorite and go-tos that I use in my therapy room. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. If you have any questions or would like some more suggestions for games, please comment below this video. I would love to hear from you. Or if there's a topic that you'd like for me to cover, please let me know. I love to respond to audience requests. So that's it for today. Thanks for tuning in, and I will see you all later. Bye.